Have you ever wondered how I pick the songs for these song reviews? No, of course you haven't wondered. Here's how I do it, though. I generally have gone through, I mean, obviously, every other week we try to review a Phil Collins song, and then 2 weeks later, a Genesis song, and flip back and forth. And we've done some B-sides and some super big hits and a Peter Gabriel song as well. Of course, I've done like the big songs, but it's the deep cuts that I really like to get into. And I come to these songs by way of just randomly discovering it or reading about it or thinking about it or hearing it on a mixtape or on vinyl and thinking, I haven't really thought about this song, but I love it. And that's actually been the impetus for some of the past Genesis songs I reviewed in the past 6 weeks. Taking It All Too Hard, that song just kind of, I have a beautiful new copy of, well, newish Japanese import of the Shapes album. And I just heard this song and how crisp and beautifully produced it was. Same thing happened recently with Salmasses and just realizing, oh my gosh, what a groovy tune. It happened again last night with Timetable. I don't think I'd really enjoyed that song. So that's going to be a future review. This song is another one that just kind of came up on me and going, I forgot about this song. It just gets buried in the album. We're talking about Keep It Dark from the album Abacab. Abacab. This song is quintessential Abacab. I mean, this sounds a lot like Abacab. Also sounds like some of the stuff we heard earlier on some of the deeper tracks on Duke. But this is Abacab. Stone Room drums. I think the Stone Room was ready by then. Like big bang 80s drums. Phil Collins 80s sounds, but what bigger, more reverbed, more sustained in the reverb than on some of his solo stuff. Anyway, big drums, aggressive guitars, very dirty, aggressive guitars, dirty bass, synth bass as well. And then, of course, like the most aggressive synths that Tony would do. And this song is quintessential Abacab. It sounds a lot like the song Abacab, very similar to Dodo as well. I don't mean similar in a bad way. I mean a real cohesive sound. I think this album has got to be the album with the most cohesive sound. With aside from Selling England does as well, maybe Invisible Touch a little bit, but no, this album is absolutely like a beautiful listening experience all the way through. There's a little bit of bumps here and there, but it's great. I mean, honestly, this is such a deep cut. Here's where I think this song really came together for me. I was listening to the Genesis Shapes tour. I believe it was Philadelphia. I believe it was 81. Does that sound right? No, I think it's 83. I think it's 83 or 84. Anyway, and they play this on the tour towards the end of the show before it goes into It's Gonna Get Better. And then they close out the show with an encore. But that's where I was like, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful, beautiful song. It's in 6/4, I think. Dum, da, dum, 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 dum. Yeah, I could be wrong. The sound, same with Abacab, the sound is so awash. There's so much happening. But when you really listen closely, you hear the trio. You hear fuzzy bass and electric. You hear the synths. Sometimes the synth is doing the bass. Sometimes it's a bass. I think it might be synth. And then you hear Phil and then the vocalist. But like, it really just sounds like, oh, this is the trio really doing their thing. I've said all along, Abacab is like one heartbeat away from being an absolute 10 out of 10 iconic synthwave, new prog, 80s prog album. Like, I love everything about it. I mean, would I swap Whodunit with You Might Recall? Personally, I would. Would that make it a little too poppy though? Because of like some of the other sort of pop songs? I don't know. I honestly think that would make it a better record, but that's hindsight because also like I've talked about this before, doing a risk like putting on Whodunit on this album could have paid off. It could have paid off in some of the other risks that they take, like Mama and In the Air Tonight in a certain way. Even We Can't Dance could have been an absolute flop and it was a massive hit. So I can't really blame them. But it's like the deep songs, like it's the songs on this record, Man on the Corner, Like It or Not. I'm a big fan of Like It or Not. Dodo and this song that are real deep cuts. I know there's the fan favorites. Man on the Corner is a fan favorite. Abacab, No Reply at All, Me and Sarah Jane. Those are big tunes. Whodunit obviously is Like It or Love It. So it really relegates these darker tunes. Now, from what I was reading, this is a great book. I'm doing a book review on some great books. Talking about all the Genesis albums. I'll do that very soon. But I guess this is like an alien abduction. Interestingly, kind of a bit of a similar, it's kind of a similar parallel to Trick of the Tail, right? In that it's like this guy goes away and sees a beautiful world and beautiful creatures and has this interesting story, but he's hiding it from his friends. He can't, for some reason, he can't share what he's seen. I don't know. I feel like there is some sort of lyrical parallels there. I feel like as a fan of the 80s and 90s Genesis, as a fan of the early Genesis, and as a diehard fan of the in-between era, I just feel like this sound ends up being some of my favorite Genesis stuff. Home by the Sea, Mama, Tonight Tonight, Brazilian, Man of Our Times, Behind the Lines, and the Duke Suite. There's just the keyboard stuff, the big drums, and the more present electric guitars. So that to me is like that super sweet spot of Genesis, in my opinion. And Phil's vocals at the best, at the height. Speaking of Phil's vocals, how beautiful is this song? I have a 12-inch record of this. So this was a single, wasn't it? Let's look that up. It was the second single from Abacab. The first one was No Reply at All. No, sorry. The first one was Abacab, No Reply at All, Keep It Dark, Man on the Corner. It reached number 33 in the UK singles chart. It probably wasn't a US single. Was it a US single? It's played more often now. I mean, there's a lot of deep cuts like Man on the Corner, Abacab, Me and Sarah Jane, and this song that I hear, like I've heard Keep It Dark, I think, in a grocery store. You know, Michael's, the craft store? I had to go in there with my kids to get some stuff for Halloween. I hate it in there. I have no interest in crafts. I go in there and I hear Silver Rainbow on the radio. Isn't that weird? That was a nice little treat. That was the universe blessing me for going into a store I didn't want to go into. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about though is Phil's voice and what makes the song super pretty. So it's called Keep It Dark. It's a weird tune. It's not very accessible chords and sounds in the intro and verses, although that riff is pretty cool. It's very rock. But then this awash of beautiful sounds for the pre-chorus and chorus, and Phil's vocals just crescendoing into falsetto, just higher and higher and higher, and just so beautiful. And then completely drops off. The chorus ends, and Keep It Dark he's actually like many octaves lower. I love talking about Genesis and Phil Collins songs on here, talking about albums, talking about vinyl, but specifically talking about a song, because whenever I'm talking about it, I want to go listen to it. You know, I've told you before, it's very difficult for me to play clips on this channel. A lot of people don't like that I do song reviews without playing clips. I really encourage you, if you haven't already, you can push play on Spotify or drop the needle on this song while you're watching this video. You can listen to it in the background so you know what I'm referring to. I have played clips before. It gets very complicated with monetization and one day you could get Concord or Tony Smith to slap the cuffs on me if they want. So it's just it's something you got to stay away from these days when you run a YouTube channel. You know that. You've heard that from everybody else. Anyway, I got this 12-inch single. It's got that little statue of the monkeys. It's like see no evil, hear no evil, smell no evil. I always thought it was weird how I talked to Bill Smith about this. Like the artwork I love the artwork for Abacab. And then it's like the artwork for Man on the Corner is in the same look and feel. And I think Bill did that one and Abacab and No Reply at All. But then this song, for some reason, wildly different artwork. Maybe it was Bill Smith that did that. Maybe it was. Yeah, I can't remember now. You should go back and watch that interview. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about this song, Keep It Dark. I think it's great. Have I forgotten to talk about anything about this song? Probably. I always do. But you'll let me know in the comments.